All right, thank you everybody and happy Friday. I hope you're all able to stay at least a little bit cool, depending on where you are in the country, or as Rob and I were just talking about, it's probably everywhere in the country. You're probably a little overheated right now, so hopefully you can sit back and enjoy listening to Bill East from the Army Corps of Engineers Engineering Research and Development Center. He's going to be talking to us today about building product data, the SPI property sets, and what sort of initiatives they're working on. So today, we're going to be discussing this. There's not really much in the way of housekeeping. We were, pretty clear in the last couple of months on some stuff, and I don't know that we had anything that we needed to take care of. We're going to try to get in the future for the next few meetings. We've been talking about turning the leadership from a single person, being myself plus Roger as sort of a co-chair, to creating a panel where we can have multiple people that are no longer in listen-only mode, that can sort of act and raise questions throughout presentations. So if there's any individuals that are interested in being a part of the panel, we can do it either as a set group of people, or we can sort of rotate through based upon the topic at hand. That's pretty much what I had as far as housekeeping. Rob, were there any items that you wanted to clarify before we get started?
Not necessarily clarify, but I did want to mention to everyone that maybe if you are planning on attending Construct this year, the CSI convention, we're actually going to have a practice group panel there who are going to discuss specifying and just basically the future of the industry. So that's something to kind of mark on your calendar and maybe look into if you're going to be attending. That's about all I had.
All right, thanks, Rob. Yeah, there's a practice group session. It's each of the leaders of the practice groups, and I believe it's being moderated by James Robertson. So that's what we have in the way of housekeeping. So without further ado, I think we want to turn this over to Bill East and listen to what he has to say.
Okay, thanks. So as advertised, we're going to talk about building product data today, and some guys that you folks know named Mark Kalin and Paul Bertram have been engaged in this project to various degrees. Paul much more recently, but Mark Kalin and I originally sort of kicked this project off after sharing the stage at a session at EchoBuild. I think it was EchoBuild 2010. Sorry, 2008. Okay, so we all know there's lots of building information exchanged during the course of a project. The problem is we can't really use most of it. It all exists in this paper format. So what's currently happening around is that people are saying, wow, just buy my stuff and we're going to take care of this. The problem, unfortunately, is that no one tool or stack of tools will solve the problem. And one of the main reasons is because we have to use different tools for different jobs. And these tools don't always share the same kind of representation of the information that we need. And a perfect example of needing different tools for different jobs is probably in your toolbox at home. Here's some of the examples. Now, I could tell you, luckily not from personal experience, but I certainly wouldn't want the doctor to take the tenderizing hammer on my knee. He uses that special hammer because he needs it. So we all have specific tools for specific purposes, and we have to have that. If we don't, then there's going to be trouble. The other thing is that the tools change over time. Now, a great story about this shirt is that I have a 20-year-old civil engineering intern working for me this summer. So he happened to come in, and we were working on something, and he happened to see this presentation, and he looked at the black square thing in the middle of this T-shirt, and his comment to me was, "What is that?" Okay, so hopefully some of you, although you're muted, you're going to get a chuckle out of that. Obviously, we need something that is going to extend beyond the technology that we have currently have in the day, no matter how good that is. And so what we really need is open, structured building information that's clearly described, and in that way, it's something we're going to be able to share, not just now in the context of a specific contract, but over the 67.5 average age of an Army year, average age of an Army building, which is where I'm coming from with a lot of this presentation. So, specifiers, properties, information exchange. What is this project all about? Well, there's lots of different product properties. There's properties associated with standards and maintenance and installation and operations and purchasing, and obviously this audience knows a lot more about specifications than I do. But I can tell you, if you're a facility maintainer, what you're most interested in when you approach a fan is what is the size of the fan belt, because that's the piece that's probably broken. And my guess is you don't have a clue what that is. So you're going to have to go out, drive to the thing, find out what size it is, go back to the shop, get it, drive back, and then install it. And this is a tremendous waste. If you're doing a reinstallation, you're going to need to know about the bolt hole locations in the base plate. So, this is not something that would necessarily be of interest to specifiers. Operators may be interested in what is the expected temperature, operating temperature, or the vibration patterns expected for a specific piece of equipment. So there's lots of different properties. For this particular project, we focused on specifications properties, and there are a number of really good reasons for that. The main reason is because the people who produce the data, the manufacturers, gain some very large benefits as a result of providing structured information. The first is it makes it easier to find and compare their product to other people's products. So if you have a better product, you're going to be able to see that these values in these two side-by-side cut sheets that now match up, that you will make the selection. Also, once the building is purchased, then what often happens is that facility managers get then locked in to the makes and models and the replacement models for the products that were originally installed. Having the actual data about the capabilities of the product as opposed to just a model number is of significant benefit, because then that facility manager can go out and do a search on equivalent products and not necessarily stay locked into the one vendor. So finally, it expands the value of their existing marketing material. So they already spend, I heard one number of, you guys probably, again, because of the audience, you probably know better than I, but I heard manufacturers spending somewhere around like $10,000 to do a nice glossy PDF. If the same data were simply exported from that manufacturer's database, you would probably find that the resulting value is quite a bit higher and the cost is extremely lower from having that. So the design and build team, and that includes specifiers, of course, have some benefit, because now you would have access to a variety of information that maybe you wouldn't have had before. Also, in terms of the actual use of the evaluations of the products, having and focusing on the electronic nature of the information. Of course, it's all electronic to begin with. Many owners, like, for example, the owner that I work for, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, still requires 10 or 7 or however many paper copies with the rubber stamp and the cover sheet on the front and the chicken scratch deviations that you can't read by the time you get to the last copy. So our intention is to accelerate the transformation of all of the electronic distribution of this information, for the benefit of owners and, dare I say it, mankind everywhere. Ultimately, for the design-build team, capturing that information upstream electronically eliminates the need to send the intern. I have a professional staff member here whose summer job at a construction company between her undergraduate and graduate school was standing in front of a Xerox machine making handover documents. I can't see a more useless waste of time for someone who's excited and looking forward to starting a career in our very dynamic and really terrific field than to stick somebody in front of a Xerox machine for the whole summer. The person has an iPhone on their hip. They're texting back and forth all the time, and yet we have yet to solve this problem. While I'm on this particular point, I'll just mention that my the first reference to a publication stating the need to deliver product data to facility managers was in the National Academy of Engineers report in 1983. You know, and in 1983, the computers didn't have hard drives. They had two of those big floppy disks, one for the program and one for the data. And even then, people could see the future and say, why don't we have this information delivered to the facility manager? Well, I'm going to tell you that here we are close to 40 years later, and it's still not done. And, you know, maybe that's why there aren't more architects and engineers and specifiers going into school, because when they come out to work for us, we stick them in front of a Xerox machine instead of having them do the real work that we need them to do. There's obviously benefits to the operators and to get the correct warranty, preventive maintenance. Replacement parts information is a critical aspect for facility operators that's rarely done to the satisfaction of those folks. And I mentioned buyout. And in terms of people using this, you know, it's fine if you want to go chase software system X, Y, and software system, you know, Y version Z, and have those versions and systems change 1,000 times in the next 10 years. That's great. Wouldn't it be better if everybody just wrote to the same external format? So for those people that use it, there's a dramatic benefit in terms of lack of data wrangling. Okay, so I think that's the term I like for it, is data wrangling. So if you look at this life cycle process to use structured product data, it begins by someone saying, for a particular kind of product, this is the information that we need. And it goes from there to the manufacturer providing the information in that format for the specifier and designer to use that information and or import the three or equal, or the specific product, or whatever the nature of the specification is, and then for the contractor to find those products and or find other products, select it, have it evaluated and installed, and then having the data directly from the manufacturer to automatically create the O&M manuals, at least as far as the products are concerned, and equipment. Obviously, the system-related information still needs to be added. And then finally, when the operator's evaluating these products against his maintenance information, he finally would have a way to say, you know, this particular class of product, here's the 10 different kinds that I have. This one's always breaking down. Why don't I start specifying some other kinds of products? It allows the manufacturer to interact with the operator in a way that was not possible previously, again, to the benefit of both. So that's the big picture. Now let me show you kind of an example. So standard product templates. The whole building design guide's product guide is the location for the specifier's properties templates. And currently, the set of templates that are posted here have been here for about 2 years. And these were created by Mark Kalin, who you guys know. I think he's your technical director this year. And so this particular example, we said, well, I want to find the information template for light fixture. So you stick light fixture in the title. By the way, the website is here. If you want to grab that, I can copy that and put it in the chat window. Let's see, how do I do that? There should be chats. I'm going to send it here, and I'm going to send it to everyone. Okay, so there's the, yeah, so ignore the 20 thing on the bottom, but the other piece should work. So this is Mark's first go, and the intention of Mark and I in doing this was to say the following. We know that such a list is by its very nature is going to be inconsistent, incomplete, and in some cases inaccurate. So our objective to put it up here was to basically say, tell us what's wrong with this list and get engaged in the project so that you can fix it, right? Because this is the dynamic that's taking place, right? Everybody wants to complain and nobody wants to jump in and do it. So this is an opportunity for people to jump in and do it, and that's how Mark and I set it up. We'll talk in a minute about an update that's going to occur this summer, leading into the fall and potentially even December. that may include some of you all and certainly other members of CSI. And anyway, we'll get to that. So this is the current product guide. So one can search on the product guide for light fixtures, and you see a very nice presentation. There's a property called light fixture type, lamp type, light fixture mounting type, placing type, and a number of other things, some of which I have no idea, maximum plenum sensible load. I mean, that's something that light fixture guys know about. I'm just a dumb civil engineer, so I just do what they tell me, which is the goal, right? Manufacturers and their associations get to decide, not some guy at the Army Corps of Engineers. The result is product type templates, and then the implementation of these templates in specific manufacturers' products. This is from a demonstration that we did in December of 2009 that you can find on the SPI website. So manufacturers produce their products and produce basically what we would call an IFC cut sheet, and here's an example. So this is from a company you might have heard of called General Electric. They participated in December of 2009 and continuing. And they provided us models for panel boards and light fixtures of 2 different types. And so you can see the future here is that you can get the cut sheet if you want to view it as a human, or you can get a couple of different formats of open standard building model files that can be dragged and dropped into specific software. And this is, in fact, exactly what we did. So we have the contractor select the model, the designer picked a specific product, dropped it in the model, and let me show you a quick example. So the December 2009 example was based on this little apartment building, and what we did is we had the basic model and we had a couple of products that we needed to put in, and there's lots of different ways to view the model. You can view the model in a model viewer like IFC Story View. You could view it in, this model was probably done either Revit or ArchiCAD or something, I don't know. So you obviously have the native file format, and then an extraction of this into a spreadsheet is in a format called COBIE. COBIE is the Construction Operations Building Information Exchange format. And if you just Google that, you're either going to find some actress, and then if you, depending on the day, sometimes the actress is ahead of us and sometimes we're ahead of the actress. So COBIE will either be right above or right below the pictures of the actress that come up on the Google search page. Anyway, COBIE is the place to describe this format. And we won't really spend too much time talking about it today, but that's the underlying format. And so here we have an example of, well, we need a panel board. We go get the cut sheet. We can load it directly into the spreadsheet, or we can load it into our system, and then it can be viewed in any kind of different way. It can be viewed as properties in a model. It can be viewed in viewers or in design software, and it can be viewed in these things called COBIE spreadsheets. And who cares what format it is? It's all the same data, and that's the point, because we took the time to define it ahead of time. So let's talk about the inputs. How do these SPI templates come up? Well, the contents of the SPI templates come from 3 basic sources. One is the underlying standard format, which is ISO 16739, which is a super specification on top of the step format, which is another ISO format, 10303. And if Roger Grant were here, he would tell you that ultimately all of these templates would form the basis of a large dictionary that would define U.S. building products, and those would be in something called the International Framework for Dictionaries. But before you have the dictionary, you have to have the words to put in the dictionary, which is why we're working on the templates first before we do the dictionary. So we know the format the dictionary is going to take, and we need some other information. We need an alphabet, an index to organize the information. And luckily, CSI has come up with a number of different kinds of classification. As you all know, master format, uniformat, omniclass are the classification schemes of record in the U.S. Canada has some, Britain has some, other people have theirs. We have CSI. SPI templates are organized around all of these things. Anyway, I can show you the index of these things maybe towards the end if there's questions on that. By the way, we will go down the attendees list alphabetically and ask if anybody has questions, or I think you can raise your hand and using the little application here, and I think one of the organizers will make sure that I get interrupted to answer the question. So we have the format, we have the classification, and then what goes in the SPI templates comes from manufacturers themselves saying these are the things that are important about my product, associations to make sure that the big manufacturing companies don't add proprietary requirements to push out the little guys, and then we have issues associated with regional practice. So one of those issues that's fairly important in the United States is whether or not we're using harder self-metric and the use of imperial measurements and all of that stuff. So obviously we need to overload our data a little bit because some people want hard, some people want soft, some people want metric, some people want English, all of that stuff. So there's other regional practice as well. And then of course codes and standards define some of the properties that we need to have in these templates. So this is the procedure, or I should say the inputs to the process. Now let's talk about the process itself. So there's 5 steps. The first step is people decide that they're going to do this, and so they source the information. The next step, across the top first, and then I'll talk about each of the individual pieces. The next step is the templates are developed in a consistent way so that the information that's in one template that's meaningful to compare against the information in another template is all done in the same way. We don't want to have the same product category or products of related categories that need to be compared have different values that have to be filled in. I mean, that's exactly what we're trying to get away from, because that's what happens in paper PDF files right now. So basically building Smart Alliance is kind of the librarian for all of this stuff, and then these things get adopted both by being put in the product guide as well as by manufacturers' databases. Now, they already have all of this information, so staying with the manufacturer line for a minute, all they need to do is, if they have the right format, is to export it into this format, because they already have all the data in the databases. The problem now is they're getting asked to export it lots of different ways for lots of different purposes, and they're spending, in some cases, $5 grand a pop to do Revit families for their products. Now, I don't know how many manufacturers have how many families of products, but if you count them all up and you figure you're going to have to do a new set of families every year, that starts to quickly become a piece of money. So there's no need for that, because if you have, going back to the top line, if you have for a specific classification of product an appropriate minimum specification of the properties that go with that product, which is the IFC template or the product type template, then manufacturers can create IFC cut sheets. Now, again, with the GE example, the idea is the data goes with the PDF file. So you get the stuff people can read and the stuff computers can read all together. So how are we going to use it? Well, the templates go into design tools and specification tools, and I'll take that later, okay? And the other information, the IFC cut sheets, are used during the process of design and specification and so forth. Actually, I may need to just mute for just a second. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're in the middle of a home renovation gone bad, and I didn't know if that was a contractor calling with a change order. Okay, so in talking with Paul and Mark last week in the context of a sustainability properties project, we began to discuss the potential for CSI and Building Smart Alliance, which is a group within the National Institute of Building Sciences, to basically vet the current 1,200 product types. We're getting ready to release 1,200 individual product type templates. The expectation is that CSI technical committees will be able to review these. The information is going to be collated and double-checked and reorganized, and then we'll be able to update the product guide and some presentation maybe at the December NIBS meeting. we'll obviously update the search page and everything else and begin to identify kind of specifications to require the delivery of the information. And at this time, we're also talking with underwriters laboratories who may be interested in working with their very wide set of folks to automatically export the IFC cut sheets directly from their manufacturer's database, with the expectation of, as early as a year later, to have all master format sections have some kind of product delivery in these open formats and to demonstrate their use within commercial software. So a year sounds like a long time until you start parsing out all the things that have to happen in order to get this stuff used in the facility life cycle. So we also, once the demos are done, then we have to start actually the hardest piece of the work, which is to get pilot projects in place that use these things on real jobs and not just people standing in front of conference rooms. So that's the next stage, and we hope in about 18 months to be able to kick that off in a real serious way. So that's the kind of project on the table with CSI and Mark Kalin and others. We'll be having conversations with the technical committee about that. So here's the context for the project. Paul and Mark at CSI, at the National Institute of Building Sciences, Dominique Fernandez-Smith, who's the Executive Director of the Building Smart Alliance. David Morris is the Chair of the National Building Information Model Standard US. Myself and my staff, our contact information is here, as well as we have employed in the past an analyst to assist us in doing this final mapping, the last mile, so to speak, in getting the XML files and the step files and the COBie files all to synchronize. Okay, so that's my presentation. Let me take some questions now.
All right, that was amazing. I think the way you put everything is about as clear as you could possibly be in terms of showing the need for this. I guess the first question that I have is when it comes to standardizing the information among different platforms, is there going to do you see a way where all of the information that a manufacturer might put into their BIM components to be able to transfer from one software to the next, and then ultimately get into this database so that it can be leveraged? Because I know that currently the software vendors really don't play well in the sandbox, and the IFC can tend to be lossy. I don't know where 2x4 is going to end up, but I'm curious as to if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand. I don't know. Maybe some of you are old enough to remember this guy who's this comedian whose name was Wright. I can't remember his first name now. So the IFC model is kind of like a model of everything that you could ever want in a building at any time. Okay, so the Stephen Wright was his name. So his joke was, I really wouldn't want to have everything because where would I put it? So this is the kind of problem when one faces the daunting task of let's do IFC models, because the IFC model is really a model of everything. So what ends up happening is that people define subsets of the model that are used for specific purposes. These things are called model view definitions. The model view definition that is most generally implemented in commercial software is called the IFC coordination view. And the purpose of this coordination view is, as you might expect, collision detection. So other model views provide other purposes. And the only way to have manufacturers of software make sure that they're doing a correct implementation of other model views is to have them do it and then enforce the use of it. So it's clearly a kind of a chicken and the egg question. But I can tell you that the reason that I got engaged in this whole effort about 5 or 6 years ago, not just this but several other projects simultaneously, is because I went to a meeting where there was a V-shaped table and the software companies were on one side and the users of software were on the other side, and the users asked the software companies, why doesn't your software work together? And the users said back, tell us what you want. I mean, the software companies said, tell us what you want. And the users said, well, we don't know. And I turned to the guy next to me at the end of the meeting, and I said, we just sat in a meeting for 8 hours, and this is the conversation we've had. Am I understanding this correctly? He said, yes. And he said, the pathetic thing is, we've been having the same conversation for 30 years. So it's not a matter of the software companies not being willing. The problem is the industry has to get it together and say, this is what we need to exchange at specific times. So what we need to say, and going back to our chart, is to say that when you go from to take a template into the piece of design software, here's the data file that you're going to receive. So you have to be kind of extremely specific about it. I mean, to the point of you know, kind of craziness at some point. But until that's defined, then nobody can ever do it. So that's the job, is to make the specification of each of these exchanges something that can be contractable and something that can be testable. And once you have that, then you have the basis to ask software companies to implement it, because they're not chasing this and that and some other thing. They're saying this is the one format you're going to receive. So that's one question about IFC, MVDs, approach to implementation. Now let's talk about the other end of the question is the section for manufacturers. How do manufacturers get the information in? So by definition, specifiers properties represent a minimum common, a least common denominator of products for that type of properties for that type of product. So how does a manufacturer differentiate themselves? The way they do it is by adding an unlimited number of additional properties describing other features or specific attributes of their product that make their product special. And that's an inherent part of this activity. So if we agree on the answer to the software company's question, just tell us what you want, and the right people answer that question, which should be manufacturers and specifiers from the point of view of specifiers properties, then we have the software companies willing to accept that, because we're going to give it to them in a standard way that everybody can use, and they won't have to guess what it is, and it won't be something that's just for GSA or just for the Corps of Engineers or just for North America or just for Europe. It'll be something that's appropriate for the entire world. So this is part of a larger international effort, because the Building Smart Alliance is one chapter in the Building Smart International, who are the people that maintain the underlying model. And we have been successful here in the U.S. to allow the international to lead the international. As I mentioned, the only sort of standard approved model view that's in all the software is the IFC coordination view. There's another recognized model view, which is the first non-geometric data exchange model view. It's called the FM handover model view. It's also called COBE. This is the model view that's used for most of this specification. So software companies can already do it. We just need to tell them, here's the piece of it you're going to get at a specific time. So it was kind of a little bit long-winded, but it was a big open question. So I hope I didn't take too much time.
No, you didn't, and you know that was an intentional hand grenade to spark some other questions, which it actually did. So, sure. You know, as you were talking, we had a few that came in. You know, has this been done on a project, or is there a case study out there?
No, we're currently working to get the templates in a format where manufacturers would be willing to provide the data.
Okay.
You know, one of the essential components of this is this dynamic between people that try and make electronic product catalogs, which obviously a lot of people in the audience are probably immediately jump into things like you know, electronic suites catalog. It's my understanding from asking around, and you know, I wasn't involved in these things personally, so I might get the details wrong, but McGraw-Hill tried twice and failed, and we have NIBS tried once before with an earlier version of the product guide and also failed. And part of the failure had to do with what data was being asked, but I think the more important piece is the kind of publication mode for the information. So, the publication mode of product catalogs in our business is really skewed compared to other industries. Just take, for example, what would happen if Stephen King had a manuscript and he took it to Simon & Schuster, and Simon & Schuster said, "This is awesome. In order for us to publish it, you need to give us $10,000. Well, we all know it doesn't work like that, right? The people that author the information that's used by many other people, those are the people with the power because they author the information. So manufacturers provide the information. The real sweet spot is not in the publication of the information any longer, because any of the manufacturers could publish it right along where you get the PDF files. The real issue is in the discovery phase and having a smart search tool that's going to know how to look inside these files and compare them automatically. So I think that's the long-term vision of this. And this is where we are right now, is engaging manufacturers to produce the data, because it has to start there.
Okay. And the next question was, working with models today, we're interested in building up our libraries of building objects with your standard. How do you get started?
Okay, so what I would say is the way that the items are right now in the product guide is premature. Okay, this is just beginning this thing. And it's a really big problem. And I'm going to say that it's going to be uneven for some time. So we might have some manufacturers engage quite strongly. Other manufacturers may lag back, as you would expect in any kind of transformation. I would expect that at some point in the future we'll look back and say, hasn't it always been this way? The same way you would look back and think about the ASCII file. And the very humble letter A, upper and lower case, that makes all of us be able to use the tools that we use. Well, people had to fight out how to do that letter A, and it took them a while to do it. In fact, it took them about 30 years to get ASCII straightened out. So this activity is not for the faint of heart, and we are at the starting point for this particular effort. I will probably be able to tell you that in December, we will be releasing in August we'll be releasing templates across 1,200 different product categories, and that is the first time at which these templates would be in a shape. This is only a couple of weeks from now, maybe a month from now, give or take. That would be in a shape for you to directly import and start to use with any kind of level of confidence. But I think the real test is going to be, we have these 1,200 that we're going forward with, that is basically a revision or a reboot of Mark Kalin's original list that he developed from his outline spec tool. Once we have these reviewed by the members of CSI, if this joint Building Smart CSI project takes off, I think the resulting list is something that can be beginning to be used with confidence. And I think that point becomes, the end of December this year, early January next year, when we publish these on a real basis. People have tried to do this kind of thing before. NIST has done work with pump manufacturers in the past, and that's great, but there's a lot of more things than pumps in buildings. And so I think our effort is trying to do the entire set of master format sections simultaneously. And obviously we need the horsepower of an outfit like CSI and their technical committees to assist in that. Otherwise, it's a list that Bill East came up with, and nobody listens to a guy who works in the middle of a cornfield. So.
Okay, and something you had, you're talking about how this is just the very beginning, and which segues into another question that I realized I had stepped over. If somebody's interested in volunteering to help with this development, how can that happen?
Okay, so my suggestion is that you begin through your organization, CSI, and send an email to Mark Kalin. and if you need his address, let me get his email address and I'll put it in the chat box. He is the, I believe, you guys again know your organization better than I do. It's my understanding that Mark is this year's or the ongoing technical coordinator for all of the committees. So there is Mark's email address. You can call Mark, say you want to join in the project, and then engage specifically through the technical committees. And the objective is to take the templates that we're going to have available in August and review those. And we know some things in there right away need to be evaluated from our early work with HVAC and electrical companies. One of the things is IPC code is a thing that's identified for electrical products in the IFC model. And obviously in the U.S. we don't use IPC code, we use NEC, we use UL, we use a bunch of other ones. So coding classification is one issue, codes and standards are another issue. I think I mentioned metric and imperial as another issue. And then, of course, some of these areas were built out and modeled by people who were very skilled. Other people did areas of models that were not so skilled. So the expectation is that if a group comes up with the required set of properties, that these things will actually be taken back and formally included at some point in the future. If they're internationally vetted back into the IFC model as official part of the model. In the meantime, it becomes the U.S. implementation of that, and the templates would be available for reference as the the record set through this product guide. Okay, so another question then.
One is where can we view these data templates?
Okay, so this must be somebody that came in late. If you scroll up through your chat window, you're going to see that I sent the search page hyperlink right there in the chat box.
Okay. And here's a one that's a little bit longer of a question. One of the largest obstacles is the proprietary aspect of data. In addition to data format, please comment on how this may be overcome. For example, many building product manufacturers have gone on record via surveys noting that they don't wish to release product information that's detailed publicly. Even the Army Corps, for example, won't make it cost construction model. It won't make cost construction or make it cost construction cost models data public. In short, how can we get from point A to point B?
Yeah, so let me write down a couple of topics that come out of here. One is kind of a proprietary nature of some products, and another one is cost. So I'm going to talk about those two things as separate items. The format, as I said, is really the trivial element. The question is, what's going to go in there? Because, IT systems you could design in 1,000 different ways, and it's nice that we have a standard and all, and that saves us time, but we've got to decide what it is we want to exchange first before we go and get all engaged in, well, is it going to look like this and what format and all of that. So this is really the effort that this project is most focused on, is specifically what properties should be generic properties and what properties should be extended properties, and what properties, may even be proprietary properties. And this would be something that we could include explicitly in the representation to say that we have property sets that are identified as manufacturer proprietary specification sets or property sets, and that these things simply do not get transferred when you transfer. So we can have a convention for that. But, we have lots of more basic problems to solve, right? We're not even getting equipment nameplate data delivered to facility managers, and they have no idea of the inventory that they have in these buildings unless somebody goes out and crawls the job. And I'm talking about crawling the job after you've already got all the facility handover data, because you can't use any of the data that you get. It's all in paper boxes in the basement. So we're talking about the first pass here of an ongoing project that will probably proceed well beyond my lifetime. And the purpose initially is, what is the minimum set of properties that specifiers need for these specific kinds of products? There are some examples that I have also heard about where certain manufacturers' product models have been given, and then those have been used in bid documents, and as a result there was an immediate expectation that specific products would be used, and it potentially even had some problems back for the person who was letting the bid documents. So I acknowledge that there are these problems. I think that there are some technical ways to address some of them, but I think that we can start with the minimum property set with high confidence. Okay, so the next thing to talk about is one of these proprietary sets of data. I'm going to give you what I've heard is happening in Europe, that there's a mandatory requirement in Europe to provide the replacement cost and the expected life of the piece of equipment. From my understanding, this is fairly unheard of in the U.S. because it's seen in the U.S. as providing a replacement life or expected life of a piece of equipment is equivalent to providing an extended warranty. Well, you know, if the manufacturers have it and they have to provide, you know, if it's the same General Electric, you know, a transformer, and it's being purchased in England and it's being purchased in the U.S., the company has the data. It's not an issue of having the data. The issue is it important enough for the facility owner to make decisions about, to require it? And if it is, it'll be required. And initially what we're saying is we're interested in specifiers properties. We're not necessarily interested in total cost of ownership issues. But just as a side note, we did this little, just really quick little demo, and what we said was, well, okay, we know the replacement cost of the thing because you can call somebody and say, what's the cost? So we just made an estimate based on the class of the product, of the expected life of the product. We had the efficiency of the electrical efficiency and the electrical power requirements of the particular piece of equipment, and based on the preventive maintenance schedule, we could identify the expected annual maintenance cost of the different products. Now, based on the inflation rate and the utilization of the building in a variety of scenarios, we were able to do, you know, what anybody who's a junior in any kind of engineering curriculum can do, which is a net present value or annualized, you know, cost that included maintenance, first cost, and energy efficiency. So I think it's just a matter of time before this stuff is required, whether people like it or not. It's, you know, it's already required in Europe.
Okay. Next question was, please go to one of the first slides that shows the breadth of SPI, the balloons. How will the other facets be brought forward?
Okay, this is a great question. So I gave a couple of good examples, maintenance about the fan belt, installation about the bolt hole locations of the base plate, operations information, maybe where do I buy parts from, or you know, no, in operations, I think the more interesting thing is what is the emergency and normal operating position of a valve? Operators have to know that. It's not even in the drawings, you know, so somebody needs to get it. So the goal with the Building Smart Alliance is to spawn projects based on people's pain points. Obviously, getting the data delivered about products is critical to, you know, an outfit that has 543,000 buildings in 120 countries, like the Department of Defense. But I'm guessing that these properties are just as important for you as a homeowner as they are for the local school district. Other properties that are critically important have to do with addressing this question of what is the person who receives this information on the back end of the project going to do with it. And we're specifically addressing operators' properties in a project called Operators Properties Information Exchanges. The most obvious kind of properties, and the operators' properties kind of includes maintenance and operation. There's several sources of data for this. One is some information that was recently published, a kind of requirements analysis by GSA. There's some other requirements that have been promoted by other agencies, and we're going to kind of collate all of this stuff and see if people are interested. I will tell you that the original format, when we went to the specification side of it and said, oh, by the way, for the manufacturers that came to the meetings, we said, by the way, we have a standard format already for you to do replacement parts and preventive maintenance. Here's what it is. Do you think you can provide your data in this way? And they said, absolutely yes, that at least the ones that spoke up said that they could do it. So we already have a way to do maintenance information and parts, and so we're looking at defining what the requirements are for operations. And the requirements are not, how can I take the data out of Revit and stick it into Maximo? That's not what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about the things that the guy with the wrench needs to know to do the work. And that operator's properties information exchange. If you're interested in that, please send me a message. Let me put my email in here, and I will get you an invite to that meeting that I believe is the 9th or 10th of August. It's in Washington, D.C. We will also have a conference call available. Okay, so that's me. All right, next.
Okay. Well, this one looks more like a comment. Someone has to take on training users on how it really works on their job. If the job is going there with a case study, the manufacturers will do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the procedure for the wider project, which is this overall COBE activity, the first demonstrations were demonstrations of technical feasibility. And that's the stage that we're kind of in with this. We have some examples of some software using it in simple test cases, and that's where we are. The next stage is after technical competency, then we say quality assurance. So you could do it, now do you do it right? The third stage is you could do it, can you do it right, can you do it on real projects? So that's where case studies come in. So I would expect that by 18 months from now, we'll be engaging in identifying opportunities for case studies and then benchmarking previous and future process, comparing the result during the case study, and being able to produce the reports in a way that's consistent with lots of other case studies that are starting to come out. If you want to get a sense for the case studies that are going on with this construction operations building information exchange, that would sort of be approaches to model. Let me quickly get a look at it, and I'll put the link in. I just need to get this, for some reason, my web browser, there it is. So we'll go to the COBE page, we'll go to the lists, and this is the page, I believe, for you guys to take a look at about some approaches to case studies. It was very important for me to have a consistent format for case studies. Otherwise, we end up with just guys with soapboxes. So this requires a very man-hour level of business process analysis, measurement, and subsequent comparison to actual performance. This is not for the light of heart, but then again, we need things that we can really rely on that end up in stuff that looks like pro forma balance sheets. We can't rely on guys with soapboxes anymore if we're going to solve these problems. Because look, it hasn't worked, right? The other way has not worked. So some other approach has to be taken. This is my suggestion, and I'm open to hear alternatives. Okay, next question.
Okay, let's see, where did we, okay, who's paying for the development on the 1,200 templates that you plan to release in August?
Yeah, so that work was done under a research project funded by the U.S. Army.
Okay.
The overall project is called Life Cycle Model for Mission-Ready Sustainable Facilities.
Okay. And how does SPI COBE integrate with CMMS and or enterprise asset management technologies to support life cycle for FM or operations?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the life cycle question, I think I already sort of talked about things like, I'm not saying it's life cycle analysis, but I would call it sort of total cost of ownership, or sort of briefly address that question, so I won't hit it again. I will tell you that Kobe project is well along with 6 or 7 maintenance management systems being able to, with the press of a button, automatically import Kobe files. The Kobe challenge pages and Kobe case study pages more recently, such as December. I'll give you an example. Let me give you the web link for that. We started doing case study analysis, just general, at this time with projects that were ongoing. The previous link that I sent you is these well-formed, very detailed business cases. The case studies I just sent you were more recent. There are case studies in there of someone saying that they had a building just like the building they're working on now, and it took them 3 man-years to enter the data the last time they did it. They had to do it on nights and weekends, and the guys even were so mad that they remembered the pizza that they ate when they watched the Super Bowl from the office. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that people have to do, and I appreciate the question, because this is really a tremendous pain to think you can just throw it over the wall to the next guy and have it work out. It's an extreme waste of time and effort, and you know, so forth. So so when they use the software that they purchased that includes Kobe, it took them about 3 minutes. So I mean, let's think about, you know, the scales of justice, right? The little balance that she holds, right? And in the one side of the balance, you put 3 man-years, and the other side you put 3 minutes. So that's kind of where we're at. We've demonstrated it. There is a Kobe means and methods page, which is maybe I'll just give you the reference, the whole reference to the whole thing, which is here. And all of the information is there under the means and methods section. You can see when different software companies were tested and so forth. Our plan is also to have a new round of Kobe challenges that will kick off towards the end of August, leading to December demonstrations. I think this one will probably include IBM as one of the participants, as well as the usual cast of characters that has already participated. Okay, next question.
All right. Well, it looks like we have time for one more question, and I guess that's fortuitous because we have one question left. How do templates models get implemented into your online library? Does the industry have to provide products they want to be used, or can you simply request a product?
Yeah, so I think that this kind of long-term maintenance, I don't have an answer for right now. What I can tell you is that we're approaching it from the view of we have some templates and we're looking for people to respond to them. If manufacturers have products that they want to include in this product guide that aren't in these templates, then that's an opportunity for the manufacturer to engage and find out how to do this. And eventually we'll have kind of an automated process, and it has to also be clearly adjudicated by the manufacturers associations, right? Because we really don't just want a manufacturer to say, you know, you have to use my template, because if we do that, we're going to end up with a situation where a large manufacturer or one with an extreme specialty product ends up sort of having some inappropriate advantage or a misrepresentation of the product. So what we really expect is that trade and professional associations will organize, and this is already their job, and this is what they do. That's the reason that these trade and professional associations were formed, was to work with manufacturers to promote their data and all of that. So the ultimate expectation is that manufacturers, instead of the line going from them to Building Smart Alliance, that manufacturers' line will go up to trade and professional associations, and once a consensus is demonstrated, then it will come to the alliance. But I think that's the long-term picture. And certainly participation in the SPI project at the technical detail level would allow members on this call to set themselves up to handle this, because obviously one guy and a couple of support staff is not going to be able to handle the tremendous breadth of all of the products that we need to get modeled. So I think that there's some opportunity here and I appreciate this question so that I had the ability to let you guys know of that business case that may be out there for you.
All right. Well, that that was our questions, and that was our time as well. This was a fantastic presentation, Bill. This was one of the best that we've had. This was very insightful. We had a lot of good questions, a lot of good feedback, a lot of activity on the boards here. So I want to thank you on behalf of CSI and the BIM practice group for taking the time to do this for us. And at the same time, I want to thank everybody for taking some time to listen to everything that Bill had to say on a Friday afternoon. And with that, I will leave everybody, and we will be in touch next month for our next meeting. As soon as we have the scheduled date, we'll put it on the boards for you, and we'll see you in about a month.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.